Hi everyone, my name is Tom. Today I'm going to talk about a useful topic, talking about symptoms. This is important when you feel sick and need to explain how you feel to a doctor, a nurse, or another person. When I talk about symptoms, I describe what I feel in my body. Symptoms are signs that something is not normal. For example, I may have a headache, a cough, a fever, or a sore throat. These are common symptoms that many people experience. If I have a headache, I feel pain in my head. The pain can be mild or strong. I try to explain how strong the pain is and where exactly I feel it. If the pain is on one side or all over my head, I mention that detail. If I have a cough, I may cough often, especially at night or in the morning. A cough can be dry or with mucus. I pay attention to how long I have had the cough and whether it is getting better or worse. Another common symptom is fever. When I have a fever, my body temperature is higher than normal. I may feel hot, tired, or weak. Sometimes I also feel cold and start to shiver, even when my body is warm. I also may have a sore throat. This means my throat hurts when I swallow or speak. It can feel dry, scratchy, or painful. Drinking warm liquids can sometimes help reduce the discomfort. When I describe symptoms, I try to be clear and simple. I think about when the symptoms started, how long they last, and how strong they are. I also notice if the symptoms change during the day. In the next part, I will continue and talk about more symptoms, how to describe them in detail, and how to explain changes in how I feel. Now I continue talking about symptoms and how I describe them in more detail. When I feel unwell, I pay attention not only to one symptom, but also to other signs in my body. For example, I may have a runny nose, which means liquid comes out of my nose, or a blocked nose, which makes it difficult to breathe through my nose. These symptoms are common when I have a cold or allergies. I also notice if I feel tired or weak. Fatigue means I have low energy and feel like I need to rest more than usual. Sometimes I feel sleepy during the day, even if I slept at night. I mention this because it helps describe my overall condition. Another symptom I may have is body pain. This can be pain in muscles or joints. For example, I may feel pain in my legs, back, or arms. I try to explain where the pain is and whether it is constant or comes and goes. If I feel dizzy, I may have a sensation that the room is spinning or that I might lose balance. This is an important symptom to describe clearly because it can affect movement and safety. I also pay attention to nausea, which is a feeling of discomfort in the stomach that may lead to vomiting. If I feel like I might be sick, I mention this symptom as well. When describing symptoms, I try to explain how long they have lasted. For example, I may say that a symptom started 2 days ago or has been present for a week. I also notice whether the symptoms are improving, staying the same, or getting worse. Sometimes symptoms appear at specific times, such as in the morning, at night, or after eating. These details are important because they help understand the situation better. In the next part, I will continue and talk about how to describe intensity, frequency, and other useful details when talking about symptoms. Now I continue with how I describe the intensity, frequency, and details of symptoms in a clear way. When I talk about symptoms, I often describe how strong they are. I may say that a symptom is mild, moderate, or severe. For example, a mild headache is not very painful, while a severe headache is very strong and difficult to ignore. Using simple descriptions helps explain how I feel. I also describe how often a symptom happens. This is called frequency. For example, a cough may happen occasionally, often, or all the time. A symptom that appears once in a while is less serious than one that happens continuously throughout the day. Another important detail is duration. Duration means how long the symptom lasts. I may explain that a symptom lasts for a few minutes, several hours, or many days. This information helps show whether the condition is short-term or ongoing. I also pay attention to timing. Some symptoms appear at certain times of the day. For example, a headache may be worse in the morning, or a cough may be stronger at night. I include this information when describing my condition. Changes in symptoms are also important. I notice if symptoms are getting better, worse, or staying the same. For example, if a fever is going down, that is a sign of improvement. If pain increases, it may be a sign that I need more attention. Sometimes I describe what makes symptoms better or worse. For example, rest, drinking water, or taking medicine may reduce symptoms. On the other hand, movement, stress, or certain foods may make symptoms worse. These details help explain patterns in how I feel. I also try to connect symptoms with possible causes. For example, a cold may cause a runny nose and cough, while a lack of sleep may cause tiredness and headache. I don't make a diagnosis, but I describe what I observe. In the next part, I will continue with useful phrases and how I describe symptoms in simple conversations. Now I continue with useful phrases and how I describe symptoms in simple conversations. When I talk about how I feel, I try to use clear and direct sentences. I usually start by saying that I'm not feeling well and then describe the main symptom. For example, I explain where the pain is, when it started, and how strong it is. This helps the listener understand my situation quickly. I also describe the duration of symptoms. I mention how long I have had them, whether it started today, yesterday, or a few days ago. This gives important context about the condition. When describing pain, I often include specific details. I explain the location, such as head, throat, stomach, or back. I also describe the type of pain, for example, sharp, dull, or constant. These words help make the description more accurate. If I have multiple symptoms, I list them one by one. For example, I may describe a headache, then a fever, and then a cough. Organizing symptoms in this way makes it easier to understand the full picture. I also explain how symptoms affect my daily activities. For example, I may say that I feel too tired to work or that I have difficulty sleeping because of a cough. This shows how serious the symptoms are in real life. Sometimes I mention what I have already done to feel better. For example, I may say that I drank water, rested, or took medicine. This information helps understand whether the symptoms are improving or not. I try to stay calm and speak clearly when describing symptoms. Simple and organized explanations are more helpful than complicated ones. I focus on the most important details and avoid unnecessary information. In the next part, I will continue with a step-by-step example of how I describe symptoms in a real situation. Now, I continue with a step-by-step example of how I describe symptoms in a real situation from my perspective. I start by noticing that something is wrong with my body. I feel a combination of symptoms, such as a headache, tiredness, and a slight fever. I first pay attention to the main symptom that bothers me the most. I begin by describing when the symptoms started. I remember the approximate time, such as earlier today or a few days ago. This helps me understand whether the condition is new or has been continuing for some time. Next, I describe each symptom clearly. I explain where the pain is located, for example, in my head or throat. I also describe how strong the symptoms are and whether they are mild or more severe. I include additional details like whether the pain is constant or comes and goes. Then I describe how the symptoms affect my daily life. For example, I may feel too tired to focus, or I may have difficulty eating or sleeping. These effects are important because they show how the symptoms influence my normal activities. I also think about changes in my symptoms. I notice if they are improving, staying the same, or getting worse over time. This helps me understand the development of the condition. If I have already taken any action, I include that information as well. For example, I may have rested, drank water, or taken medicine. I observe whether these actions helped reduce the symptoms. By organizing my thoughts in this order, start time, type of symptoms, intensity, effects, changes, and actions, I can describe my condition clearly and logically. In the next and final part, I will summarize everything and review the main ideas about talking about symptoms. Now I finish with a short summary of everything I described about talking about symptoms. When I feel sick, I describe my symptoms clearly and simply. I mention what I feel, where the symptoms are, when they started, and how strong they are. Common symptoms include headache, fever, cough, sore throat, runny nose, tiredness, dizziness, nausea, and body pain. I also describe the intensity of symptoms using simple terms like mild, moderate, or severe. I explain the frequency, meaning how often the symptom happens, and the duration, meaning how long it lasts. These details help create a clearer picture of my condition. It is important to notice changes in symptoms. I pay attention to whether they're getting better, worse, or staying the same. I also mention what makes the symptoms better or worse, such as rest, drinking water, or certain activities. I organize my description in a logical way. When the symptoms started, what the main symptoms are, how strong they are, how they affect my daily life, and what actions I've taken. This helps communicate my situation effectively. Using simple language and clear structure makes it easier for others to understand how I feel. This is especially important when speaking to a doctor or someone who is helping me. That is the end of this lesson. Practicing how to describe symptoms will help me communicate more confidently in real situations.
Write a comment. 3 best comments get 20 English lessons completely free.